Hey, what's up, Lightbolt Joe here. Today we are going to discuss the 2007 book, the third book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series, The Titan's Curse. So, first edition book. I'm very proud of my first edition books, by the way. This is a very old book. It's 13 years old, this book. We start this book off by having Percy, Annabeth, and Talia, Percy Jackson, Annabeth Chase, and Talia Grace. Hey, that rhymed. Getting driven by Sally Jackson, Percy's mom, up to a boarding school, Westover Hall in Maine, right? The kids live on Long Island in Camp Half-Blood. Percy himself lives in Manhattan with his mom, who is now not secretly, but dating this guy, Paul Blofus. So we first get our introduction to Paul in this book. And the kids have to meet Grover at Westover Hall because he sent out an urgent distress call. He needs help. He found 2 half-bloods. One is rare enough, but he found 2, and he knows there's a monster nearby. So everybody convenes in at Westover Hall. The 2 kids happen to be Bianca and Nico D'Angelo, our main man, Nico himself, 10 years old, introduced in this book. Bianca, may she rest in peace. Don't know that they're half-bloods, don't know what's going on. So Grover and company are trying to save them from Westover Hall, but in the process, there's this vice principal, Dr. Thorne, who's actually a manticore, trying to take them and trying to, do these different things and things of that nature. So at one point, Dr. Thorne and Annabeth go over a crest after Artemis and her hunters come to try to help the kids out, fighting Dr. Thorne and his manticore spiky tail powers. So Bianca decides that she's going to join the hunt, not be mortal anymore, be an immortal huntress. We are introduced to Zoe Nightshade, the iconic immortal huntress that she is. May she rest in peace. A lot of death happened in this book. Nico's obviously mad because his sister's leaving her, but they all wind up going to Camp Half-Blood after Artemis, tries to track down this monster, tries to track down these things because she knows something's going on, so she's going west. So Zoe has to, Zoe's the lieutenant, so Zoe is the new, HBIC, if you will. Everybody goes to Camp Half-Blood thanks to the help of Apollo. We get some Apollo action in this book as well. Apollo's awesome. His flaming chariot turns into a school bus. Talia has to drive the bus of company to the camp. Apollo's just a funny, sarcastic, but a pain in the ass as well. And we obviously get different character traits of Apollo in the Trials of Apollo, that book series. But, in this particular book, he's introduced as the poet, he's introduced as the artist, he's introduced as the douchebag, as the sly, charismatic flirt that he tries to be, things of that nature. So, at Camp Half-Blood, the hunters stay in Artemis's cabin. Talia, Grover, and Percy explain what happened to Chiron, but Mr. D is also prevalent as well, Dionysus. So they all know that there is another quest that has to happen after a game of Capture the Flag. So the quest comes about. They know that it is, before the quest, all the head leaders of the cabins, sit down. So you have Charles Beckendorf, you have Selena Beauregard, you have Travis and Connor Stoll, who are not twins, but they look like twins, so they're a part of the Hermes cabin. So everybody's sitting down. Clarice is nowhere to be found for some reason. Clarice LaRue, daughter of Ares, but she's on her own secret mission, which we don't actually know. It's mentioned, but we don't actually know why she was traveling. All she knows is that at the end of the book, we know that she has bad news. So it turns out that a prophecy happens, and Bianca, Talia, Grover, Zoe, yes, go off on a quest to find Artemis. And then Percy isn't included in this. So he then breaks the code, takes his black Pegasus, Blackjack, flies to Manhattan as he follows the camp van of the 4 kids in it. And Dionysus kind of captures him on the Chrysler building with his grapevines, as we see in this beautiful artwork right here. Dionysus talks to Percy, and they kind of have a heart-to-heart in a weird Dionysus way, because Mr. D is just a douchebag, pretty much. So Percy then winds up going with the kids to the different places that they stop at. So in DC, for instance, they have a big battle in DC that Percy does wind up helping them. He does come across Luke Castellon again, some of his monsters and demigods and Lastrygonians from the Princess Andromeda cruise ship that Luke has been traveling on, as we know from the Sea of Monsters. Oh, this takes place December after the last book. So Percy was 12, 13, now he's 14 in this book. So it's like right before the winter solstice. He's right before Christmas break. That's pretty much how this is the deadline. So the first book was about the summer solstice. This book is about the winter solstice. So in DC, there in the Smithsonian Museum, all hell breaks loose. There's this character called the General, who we later learned to be Atlas, the Titan god, who has the Titan's curse, hence the book title. And he is trying to bring back these zombie creatures to attack everybody. We have the Nemean lion attacking everybody. Percy winds up killing the lion. He gets the tiger skin. He gets the lion skin as a coat. Then everybody, eventually winds up escaping. They wind up at the Hoover Dam, which is nowhere near DC, but they wind up at the Hoover Dam. More battles ensue there. They wind up in a junkyard in Arizona. Bianca loses her life in this junkyard. Then the three of them, so then you have, four. So then you have Percy, Grover, Talia, Zoe. Four of them wind up going to California because they have to go to San Francisco because that's where this mountain is. Mount Tamil? No, Mount... Wow, I forgot the name. Mount Tam. There you go. Because something's happening on Mount Tam. Nobody understands why. So we then realize that that's where Artemis is. And the kids get there with the help of Annabeth's father, who lives in San Francisco. And so Percy winds up trying to save Annabeth, who's being held prisoner by Luke. But Artemis herself is being trapped by Atlas, the Titan, who is now holding up the world, holding up the sky so it doesn't touch the world and flatten everything. Artemis was tricked into that. So Luke took the sky from Atlas to trick Annabeth to take the sky to save Luke. Who then Artemis went to save Annabeth, and now Percy went to go save Artemis so that way Artemis and Atlas can have a fight. Pretty epic battle. Percy is trying to explain how his bones are melting and fire in his body and things like that, holding up the sky. The sky. And so, as all of this happens, after Zoe, passes through her family's old, garden and one of the pet dragons attacks her and things like that, Zoe then passes away. That was a hard death to go through. So then afterwards, you have Grover, you got Talia. Well, Grover actually goes to help Bessie, a half cow, half serpent that has been following Percy ever since he saved her in the Long Island Sound. So then at this particular Mount Tam moment, you have Annabeth now, you have Talia, and you have Percy. That's it. Because Luke was kicked off the side of the mountain, even though he's still alive, and he's going to regroup and then try to kill people in the next book. Go figure. But Artemis realizes that it's almost December 21st. She has to get back to Mount Olympus for their council meeting for the winter solstice. So Blackjack and two of his friends come, takes Annabeth, takes Talia, takes Percy, sends them up to Mount Olympus. They go talk to the gods and goddesses, the Olympians that they are, about what happened, the fact that they're heroes. But while this is all happening, nobody knows the parentage of Bianca and Nico. Bianca disintegrated one of those zombies that tried to attack them. Nobody knows why. Nico is still at camp. So the gods discuss the prophecy that Talia is 1 day away from turning 16. Percy is 2 years away from turning 16. At some point, a child of the big three, before their 16th birthday, will have the fate of the gods in their hands. Will they overthrow them? Will they rule them? What will they do? So Talia decides, no, this is not my prophecy. I do not choose this prophecy. She joins Artemis and the hunt the day before her 16th birthday. That way she's always 15. Percy has a nice talk with his dad. Athena kind of threatens him in regards to her daughter. And then after Annabeth and Percy and Grover, who happens to be with Bessie at Mount Olympus, go back to Camp Half-Blood, Percy has to tell Nico that his sister passed away. Nico is livid. He says, I hate you. I wish you were dead. But these zombies who were tracking Percy this entire time follow Percy back to camp after talking to Chiron, all these things. Nico, in his rage, opened a crevice up in the floor, in the marble floor of the pavilion, the outside pavilion where they all eat, sucked the zombies into it in flames, and then that was it. He goes running off. He says he wants nothing to do with Percy. He's done. He's done with Percy. Clearly we know he's not. But it was cool because at that moment, Percy's like, oh shit, like your dad's Hades. Like this is big. We learned that the kids, Bianca and Nico, were born prior to World War II. Trapped in the Lotus Casino Hotel in Las Vegas, where Percy, Annabeth, and Grover were trapped for quite some time in Book 1. And that way, technically, Hades never broke the sacred oath of one of the big three, having an offspring that before the 16th birthday they could rule or destroy the Olympians. The kids were kept in the Lotus Casino, that way they never aged, right? And then for some reason they were taken out by a lawyer and brought to Westover Hall in Maine, but they lived in DC for a little bit too. So like, no one knows who took them out of Lotus Casino, brought them to DC to live, and then brought them to Maine to live. No one knows who did that yet. But it's interesting because the gods, find it ironic that Hades actually kept his oath, and technically he did. Technically, if in fact Bianca and Nico were born before World War II. Now, Hazel Lavisk, she is a completely different character we need to discuss many books from now, another child of Pluto, but we'll get to her eventually. So it's interesting seeing the dynamic of Hades being brought into this, the D'Angelo children being brought into this as well, Zoe Nightshade being brought into this incredible character that she is. But what's fun about the ending is how it leads right into the fourth book. Grover is on his quest as a seeker to find Pan, the goddess of the god. Not goddess, god. Pan is the god of nature, basically, right? So as a satyr, he is attached to Pan, who is also technically a satyr. And Grover, at the very last page, says, I got a message from him. He says, I await you. So like Grover, because they got a little whiff of the wind, whiff of the nature spirit, right? Throughout their quests. Like they knew Pan was around, like somewhere near Arizona, New Mexico, but like why is Pan hiding so long? So the fourth book, Battle of the Labyrinth, brings that Pan search into effect. They have to go into the labyrinth and then find Pan. So what mysteries await book 4? This was dark compared to the first Lightning Thief, the second Sea of Monsters, but there's a lot of character development that was brought into the Titan's Curse, and characters introduced. Nico D'Angelo is one of the most important characters in the entire Percy Jackson universe. So for him to be brought in as this tiny little 10-year-old playing mythomagic with his cards and little figurines, adorable, but important to show the character development of this particular individual. Nico D'Angelo is one of the most powerful demigods, so it's really cool seeing his origin, if you will. Titan's Curse, 2007, by Rick Riordan, our Uncle Rick for himself. I wear my Camp Half-Blood with pride. We are going to jump into book 4. I don't know when that review is going to happen. It's a little bit longer than this. I read a little bit slow, but I savor it. I cherish it. I cherish these plot points. These are amazing stories, well written. Rick is a genius, bringing the Greek mythos into modern takes. And for this to be 13 years old and still hold my interest, that says something. Keep on reading. Mucho mahalo.